He's like, I'm just quite busy.
We'll probably be live in like 10 seconds. They're not. Whatever. I think we're live. We're live on YouTube.
All right. Welcome to the March 15th North Logan City Council meeting. We will begin today by excusing Roger, at least momentarily, but we anticipate that he will come at some point. We'll start with a pledge led by Buzzy, after which Emily will say the prayer.
The audience, please rise and repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank thee that we could gather together as a city council to discuss city business. We thank thee for the days of sunshine and for the slow melting of the snow. We thank thee for the hard work that the city's employees have put in. We ask thee to bless us with clear minds that we can discuss city issues appropriately and we can come to good solutions. We ask a blessing on those who are sick or otherwise afflicted, that they can find peace. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Okay. I would entertain a motion to, and welcome, Roger. I would entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Emily.
Second.
Second by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Roger, you gonna weigh in? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. I believe we have several meeting minutes to approve from previous city council meetings. Marie, do you mind helping me with the dates on those? I know we have a February one. Okay. I have looked those over and didn't have any modifications to make. Does anyone have any changes to those? Then I would entertain a motion to approve those in mass.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Roger,
Second.
second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Let's move on to follow up on issues from previous meetings and review of action items. Alan?
Yeah, I'll jump through these. The Civic Center design process. We'll talk about that at the end. You could obviously see that they've made significant progress in between the storms this past week. Garbage RFP, we'll probably go over that a little bit more today as well. Water, we'll go over that, and sewer, because those two budgets are on the meeting tonight, along with streets and stormwater. So if you don't mind me just skipping through a bunch of things right now, other than to say thank you to each of those departments for working so hard, one with the water, with the well drilling, and then two, with all the different departments, aid in the sandbagging and obviously snow removal. They've done a fantastic job in filling sandbags the past week, and thanks to those departments for putting that together. There were thousands of sandbags filled, both by our CERT team and by residents throughout the community this past week. We are the only city, I don't think anyone knows this, we are the only city with an active CERT team, community emergency response team. It's a group of volunteers and a few stakes that came to help out with that. So hats off to each of them for helping out with that. Engineering, we are working on water shares. The state has made a few change in how water shares can be allocated. No new water shares in the Great Salt Lake Basin, everything that drains the Great Salt Lake. So we just have to buy and convert water shares, just so everyone's aware of that. Parks, right now they've been helping with each of the other departments, but they're gearing up for several projects right now throughout the cemetery and in the parks. And they've been very busy. Trails, we are working on a few grants right now associated with the Bottomless Shoreline Trail. And we'll talk a little bit more about this during the citizen satisfaction survey report today. Recreation, I hear that in soccer, the signups, they have over 1,300 people registered, which is double the next highest soccer entity in the valley, which is absolutely fantastic. It's a testament to Jesse and his crew. and how hard they're working. And then several of the events are coming up that we'll report on at the end of the meeting, including the Easter egg hunt and the royalty pageant. Coming down through here, cemetery. The main thing they are working on this last week, I think they're working with the canal company to get that headgate approved to put in the new pump station and pump house. They'll pump secondary water up to the cemetery, which will end up paying itself off in 1 to 2 years. Community development, they'll be talking about the subdivision access standards. And also the discussion regarding the RE5 questions up on the bench in this next meeting. Along with several other things coming up in the coming weeks. Jumping down through here, the treasurer, she's come up with a plan, and you'll see some things coming down the pike. We talk about this each week, but the getting in touch with the HOAs, multi-units, PUDs, anything around the community where there's 1 meter and we only have 1 contact. However, like Aspen Meadows is a perfect example, just north of the library here, where they have 1 meter. However, there's hundreds of residents that live in that community or in that subdivision. And the ability to go out and contact every one of them. And so what she's doing right now is she's reaching out to each of those HOAs. That's kind of the first step, sending them the newsletter, indicating to people how they can sign up to receive the newsletter, be in touch, be informed, and be part of our emergency notification system. That's the first step. The second step is we'll probably follow up and send an individual letter to every single resident throughout the community. So just to the address that they live in an apartment or an HOA, and send that to every one of them so we can get everyone kind of connected in the community. It's a large job to go through that, and she's come up with a very good game plan. Jumping down through here, thanks to Vicky, she's our accounts payable, but she's putting together packets for new businesses. When a new business comes to town, they know these types of things. They know where they can come for resources. They know where they can come to our economic development department to help them if they do need help, and just some general things within the community. This is Employee Appreciation Month. So they started it off with several games and other things that Karen has put together to recognize employees, kind of some highlights of employees. And then we'll have another lunch, I think this next Wednesday or Thursday, which the city council will be invited to, and I'll send that out just so you're aware of the details on that. It's been going really well. Hats off to them for putting those things together. Scott's been putting together the budgets. We'll go over those this evening. Library, they're prepping for their summer reading programs and the pickleball tournament at the end of April. And I'll get the summer reading kickoff date. I don't know if I have that yet, but we'll get that and put that in there because that's a large event. The police have been helping out with putting together classes for the different departments. We've been even talked about helping out with the CDL and all of our plow drivers and everyone else, getting them aid in the recertification process or certification process. And the fire department, their extrication equipment came very early after the grant, so they're finalizing a few things there. And then their new ambulance that's coming through apparently has taken a long time to put that together, essentially. Apparently they had the chassis a year ago, and they've been putting things together to get that new ambulance up and running. Obviously not the fire department, but they'll deliver that as soon as they get that done. And then their new station is well on its way. You can see the walls have gone up. So they're well on their way towards their new station 70, which is downtown, which is fantastic. I jumped through those pretty quickly, knowing that we'll be going over a few things on this council agenda tonight.
Any questions for Alan on that?
Did they figure out the trouble with the digging in the well? Did they get past that, Ben? I know 2 weeks ago you said that they'd run into a snag, but I didn't know.
Yeah, it was a pretty major snag in going through that when the sides of the well start collapsing a little bit, meaning they started coming in. And so how you backfill that and keep that from caving in continually, because that would just ruin the well. And so they figured out a way to bring in an older rig and use an older method to put what's called the sleeve or the casing down the first 150 feet, which is it's required regardless, but it doesn't usually go in at this point. So they put that in that stops it from caving in. And then they started this midweek, probably yesterday or today, to drill again. And they're down 600 feet. They'll go another 400 feet into the ground. So fantastic news at that point, because any other method would have taken our other wells offline for about 4 months in order to do that. So this way we're not offline at all.
Okay, on the topic of the citizen satisfaction survey that you mentioned, we'll be talking about that in more detail. But as part of that, we had a $300 gift card for the winner of that for Mr. Dave H. Dave, if you want to come up here, thanks for
Sweet.
filling it out.
Is it a Visa? What is it? Just a,
It
is it Olive Garden? Oh, it's Walmart.
We gotta get a tax.
Didn't know we could congratulate.
Gotta get our taxpayer dollars back.
We're supporting local businesses with that. Anyway, congratulations, Dave. We did that now so that you don't necessarily have to stay, but you're welcome to.
I thought it said if you won that, you had to stay though.
Yeah,
Meeting,
it's
so.
kind of the thing you signed. It was the small print. We also are going to be recognizing an exemplary staff member. It's May Hatterley, who was nominated by Mary Corey. She says May has taken on the role of full-time receptionist in the past month and a half without having much notice. She comes in early every day and stays soft or closing, and you will never hear her complain. She's so great with everyone that comes in through the front doors and is such a dependable asset to the city. Thank you, May, for all of the long hours you've been putting in and for doing it with such a great attitude. I'll add to this that I worked with May on the Friends of the Library, and she's wonderful to work with. And I know that she's really putting in extra time right now to cover as a receptionist. So we really appreciate May, and join me in giving her a hand of applause. All right, we will move on to our current action items. The first is consider appointing a new member of the North Logan Library Board. Tonight we will be proposing to appoint, I am blanking on her name, but I know her, Kathy Larson. I've spoken with Kathy. She's really great. She came to a library board meeting already and has been really eager to join them. And it's been a relief to get great people on that library board. So I would definitely recommend that. So I would entertain that motion.
I move that we appoint or approve to the appointment of Kathy Larson to the North Logan Library Board.
Second.
Okay, motion by Buzzy, second by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. The next one is consider accepting ownership of parcel 04-083-0086 consisting of 0.07 acres to be transferred to the city through a quitclaim deed and an associated land transfer agreement. Alan, can you give us the background on this?
So just to help everyone get oriented to where we're talking about, this is 200 east, this is 2000 north, coming past the south side of Four Seasons. Les Schwab is out on Main Street, so this is the road that comes through there. And we're talking about this point in the southwest corner. When this subdivision came through, the road was really oddly aligned, and it came through here, and then it dips down here. And it'll probably take off a chunk of this portion of property when they develop as this comes through. And then this road obviously goes through the city center and turns into 2100 north as it comes through the community, which will eventually go all the way up onto the bench. However, when they came through, when the Four Seasons came to develop, this tiny teardrop and chunk of land was left over. And it'll probably be eventually a portion of it will come in and probably be part of the road, or at least a chunk of it. And then another portion of it will probably will work with this property owner to the south. But for right now, this property owner doesn't have use of the land. It's out here in the middle of nowhere as far as use to them. And in addition, they have to pay property taxes on it. And so there's really no use to them at this point, and there will be use for the city in the future as far as a road is concerned. Their obligation to improve or do anything has already been fulfilled. And so at this point, they came to the city to request, and this is kind of a reverse. Normally the city will gift kind of these chunks of land around the city. At this point, there's really nothing else but a future road that will be used for this land. And so the mechanism to transfer that over to the city would be through a quit claim deed. which would transfer the ownership to the city. And essentially the city would just hold on to that for the next few years until that property owner to the south decides to develop. Then we would work with them on the road, expanding the road and making sure that all ties together with whatever is developed here on parcel 009. That's the gist of it. So the mechanism is a land transfer agreement and a quit claim deed. There's really no major specifications after that.
Okay. Any questions?
Is there
Yeah.
any, oh, go ahead. You go,
Sorry,
no, you
my-
go first.
I guess my only question is, it says that we're transferring the property for the sum of $10. Is that the accurate sum?
That's just in I think there has to be an exchange of finances or
Okay.
dollars. We could do $1 or $10. I
The
think
value,
all the
yeah.
other ones that I looked up had a value of $10. So I just left it there, not knowing if that was a certain specification there.
Okay.
It's called consideration. Quick legal
Yeah.
lecture.
Do we
Please continue.
intend, I mean, that's pretty messy, that corner right there. Do we intend to do anything with that right away? Or are we waiting for future development? Is there anything we can do on that little piece that we?
So you brought that up, and a few years ago, we worked with
It's the sprinkler supply.
sprinkler supply store. And I think you remember that, Buzzy, when
Yeah.
we brought that before the city council. And we were trying to clean this up because it's such a messy intersection, so odd in the way it was aligned. I don't know if we have any immediate plans, unless you've noticed something or if there's a safety concern. Safety concerns would probably come up here with weeds. The weeds would probably get too
Yeah,
high,
we've seen that.
obstructing the visual sight triangle right here. Or snow removal, if snow gets piled up here too much and then you can't see around this corner. But in reality, that is a concern because 100 East is really not developed to the level it should be. Over the years, it's basically just a double chip sealed road that our streets department keeps to that level. But long-term, this will need to be fully developed as a roadway. And then this will probably need to be expanded out and be a 66-foot right of way all the way to this corner right here. But for now, no immediate plans unless we need to, and we can always look into that. You'll have a streets department budget tonight. Maybe you can request Colby,
We do something for like
allocate some
30
funds.
bucks.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
$10.
$10. That's
'Cause that's
consideration.
how much. Yeah.
Nice. Buzzy.
Thank you. You like that?
Gold star to Buzzy for tonight.
I'll move that we accept the ownership of parcel 04-083-0086.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Buzzy, second by Joni. All in favor?
I,
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to the city council work session items. The first is overview of the citizen satisfaction survey results. I feel like I've said those string of words a million times. But this has been really informative to just kind of identify areas where people have concerns or places where they're pleased. So Alan, I'll let you take it from here, but the interns have kind of just compiled the information from that into a PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'll just jump through here. Just some interesting statistics that came back. We had over 700 respondents on this survey. Just to put that in perspective, that's very high for a satisfaction survey or a citizen input survey, which we're very pleased with getting that many respondents in this survey. As the mayor pointed out, we had 2 interns go through this with a very objective eye, meaning they had no biases. They didn't have anything to look at as far as, well, that's probably not a valid response. That doesn't cross their mind. Everything's a valid response. We had them look through it and compile everything. Some of these they didn't need to compile. So this one is basically just the response, the citizens' level of awareness. And this is something I would think has significantly improved. Some of the council members that have brought to light things where we can improve. But we'll go through this at the end of the survey. There's always room for improvement in this area where we can let the citizenry know. And this is a very key question. Just do you know how to access this YouTube channel to watch these meetings if they wanted to? Those types of things, or know how to find agendas. And obviously we can do a little bit better in that area. So there's things we can look at. This one's kind of interesting. As you look at this, I remember a presentation from Provo City about 3 or 4 years ago at the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And they have 2 or 3 social media specialists That is their full-time position, like 3 of them with Provo City. And they compile all the data, all the analytical data for how they're reaching out to people and the most effective methods. And they did a quick poll of the class. And they said, what is the most effective method for getting information out to the citizens of the community? And I immediately just thought Facebook. It's got to be the most effective. It's probably the most widely used is all I thought. Maybe Twitter the second. Their statistics came back even higher than this, where it was basically email and newsletter. So email was number 1 by far, like literally off the charts. It's like 80% of residents preferred an email about anything coming up in the city. And that was the most effective at also people getting the information. And so I was pretty amazed by that. But that also coincides with the newsletter. So sending out the newsletter, and this coincides actually with our paper copy newsletter. When we sent that out, it came back very strong that people really do appreciate the newsletter. In larger communities, you'll see them kind of fade away from the newsletter. I think it's just really important to keep the community engaged in everything that's going on. We'll talk about this a little bit more though, because there are respondents about digital access to the newsletter and emailing that out, and we'll get to that. Again, sorry, I jumped ahead. This is basically how we respond and get information out, including the newsletter. As you see these responses though, at the bottom of this one, this is purely objective because what the interns did is they just took words. These weren't options. This was a fill in the blank text. So they just took common phrases and they put those in the responses. So what you're seeing there is just pure objective data that emails, newsletter or email, calls and texts. Those are the most effective methods for getting communication out. I don't want to go over this too much in length, although I think the city council has some work to do. Looking through this is just rec programs. We can go over this at the end. Things that people requested. And these are just requests. These weren't options, multiple choice or anything. These were simply requests. They wrote in what they wanted. Obviously pickleball off the charts, which they're already working on. That's fantastic. Park amenities. We'll go over this at the end. Pool off the charts. People requested that over and over again. And obviously, I'm surprised parking isn't higher. People mention that later on in the survey. Parking's horrific at Elk Ridge Park, so it's the one thing we're working on. This one's kind of a questionable to me. As I read through this, they said that one of the highest things with potholes, if you nick 6th East and the Canyon out of our city, we probably have enough potholes to count on one hand in our community, which is absolutely remarkable for a community our size. I'm not just saying that because Colby's here, but that literally is pretty objective. I had other cities come to me and they say, how do you fill the hundreds of potholes in the winter? And I said, what hundreds?
Is that primarily just because of the maintenance, or is it just speed of response with it?
I think it's 2 things: speed of response, our surface treatments that Colby has invested in. The one thing that we will do, and I'll talk about this at the end, but maybe I'll just jump ahead. In the winter, they don't actually make asphalt.
Yeah.
So it stops in production in usually November, and it doesn't start until May. And it's dependent upon a myriad of factors, including how much gas is available for homes. That may sound odd, but that's what the batch plants use. And also what UDOT projects are going on that use a ton of asphalt. And that's when they open up the batch plant and they close it down. In the winter, what you see is called cold patch. And so they'll come in, they'll fix it. It's not as effective. And you'll probably see it unravel about a month after they put it down. But our streets crew, they go out very quickly. If there are potholes and they fill those, like I said, if you take out 6th East in the Canyon, you probably don't have many.
I feel
Yeah,
like that could be skewed because of 3100 North, where a big pothole developed, but was under Hyde Park's responsibility. But everybody thinks that's North Logan's Road. So
Right. Right
just
next to our,
being the optimist.
right
for a
next to
minute,
our
but
park,
yeah,
Buzzy.
our park that's also ours. That's not.
We really should plow that
Yeah,
park of
Can we
ours.
plow the park too?
So, but the one thing that is out here is just road
Like
striping.
that bait.
So we do part of the striping, but the part we contract out, that's probably something we can place more emphasis on. And we did receive a grant to do several bike lanes on 3 of our roads. And so those will actually be paid for through that grant. But that is something that we'll work with Colby on to update our striping each year. These are all library programs that we looked at. I'll probably jump through these because this will take a while to go through each one. This is with police and fire departments. And just an emphasis. What's really good about this slide that you're seeing though, is that Chief, as he's been giving updates to the staff and other individuals, he's already started these items. It's like working more with the schools, community outreach especially is something that we've noticed.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. It's been a real priority and I think people notice that.
yeah, and so he's already well on his way with this one. And so current paths, when we send out a general survey saying, do you like paths? That's kind of a useless question. So we didn't ask it that way. We asked, which paths would you use? When we asked, do you like paths? It comes back as 99%. And I always wonder who the 1% is that doesn't say, I like trails and paths. Anywho, going through this, yes, people would use really what it is the canal trails, and if we were to put a paved path on 16th East, that's very high usage is what you would see. And also the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. This was an open-ended question, which basically what are the nuisances in the community? And we'll go over this at the end, but they basically filled in the blank. And these were common questions, a ton about weeds and vegetation, junk, inoperable vehicles. It's very common. And we'll talk about how we want to address these items. Community development. This one was kind of odd, and I think we'll get a better survey response when we do the actual general plan. This question came back and it basically says no townhomes, but then we're also doing a good job. So I don't really know how to interpret that. This one is about a pool, a recreation center, and you can see, I don't know if I've seen a lot of surveys come back with that amount of tens on it regardless. So you have a very large support for a pool in the community. And how supportive are they? Well, that's the next question, and that's financially. And so if you take this pie, you basically have the 23.4%, the 21.4%, and the 19.6%. So you take this portion of the pie, and those are people that would be willing to put in some dollar amount, all the way from $25 up to $100 a month.
I put you on the spot on this one.
Yeah.
How's your math? So if, let's just say this moved forward and we looked at a bond at 20 that would raise taxes at $25 a year per household. Do you know what that gets us in
That
revenue?
wouldn't get us there, but
That's why I'm asking. Is there a target that?
we don't have that target, and we'll get to that because
Okay.
one of the next items on this is how we would do a bond. But the key question is, what dollar amount would that be? And what can we do by working with partners, sponsors, other entities
To bring it, yeah.
to bring that down to a reasonable level where people are looking at the 25 to 100 range for it?
Yeah, I think this was the most shocking slide in the whole presentation, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, it's very supportive. And the thing that's that people may not know is the average dollar amount that the dedicated library property tax is for a given household. It's $90. So that puts it in a little bit more
That's
of
helpful.
a perspective.
I think when we do go out, if we decide to move forward with that, if that's something we decide, I think comparing it to a library tax, I think might be a good way to do it.
Mhm.
What was surprising to you about this, Fuzzy?
I just, traditionally when you go out and say, hey, will you pay us more taxes? You don't get favorable responses. And so to see, I mean, the percentage on that is like what, 82% of people are saying, yes, I would, to have something like this in the community. That was with 700 respondents, I think was what really,
That's very high.
that's a high data point that was surprising.
Yeah.
Just
It's nice to see, though. I don't know,
Yeah.
it makes a decision easier.
To put that in perspective, basically a third of the households responded. We have about
Yeah.
2,500
Yeah, right.
households.
82% approved, I guess.
Yeah. This basically says you guys somewhat agree.
I got no opinion on the slide for the record.
The opinions of the residents. And there's things we can do. We'll go down through here and there's other things at the end of the slide. These were open-ended questions. If you could bring in a business, what would it be? Obviously Target, restaurants, Trader Joe's, those are always very high responses. on
Did we
a-
send that to Target, this slide?
They do not care about you.
Yeah. Um, this is a very telling slide about why people moved here. It was basically family oriented, open space, and that ties into some of our general plan items we'll talk about. Okay, this is basically a key slide, and it kind of develops our strategies going forward. If you want to improve the quality of life in North Logan, what would you do? And the top response was related to trails. Number 2 is stop developing. That's again a common, you'll see that pretty often on a response from surveys. Obviously not realistic, but better planning and things that we can look into through our general plan is probably a better way of putting that. We'll say it that way. A pool, zoning and planning. So these are very high responses, and decreased taxes. We'll talk about that at the end a little bit. Some things to make North Logan a better place to live, same type of thing. Trails, sidewalks. I was surprised that was the highest response out of anything in our survey. A recreation center, water planning, and we'll go over that at the end, and then open spaces. Most important issues. If you talk, they had all the elected officials raise their hand at the Utah League, and they said what platform did they run on, and basically it was growth. It was about everyone in the room, controlling growth, doing a better job with growth. Water, that is one of the major issues, and we'll go over that a little bit more tonight. Affordable housing, taxes, traffic. So what we did is I took all of those items that were very objective that the interns had gone through in the survey, and the areas where we need to place more emphasis or improve. I just kind of summarized all of them. Basically things that are kind of the highest priority, and you can see trails past sidewalks. So we'll place a very high emphasis on those types of items based off of what the respondents have said. And we'll look into those, kind of fine tuning that, probably gearing up a little bit more. The second item is really related to growth and community development, in my opinion. I mean, that's the second highest response question, things that have come up. And luckily, Scott Perks is well on his way towards working towards a general plan, and that'll be a process. And so it's a perfect time to get input from citizens and go through that. And then recreation center and pool, and we'll go over that as the next agenda item. Communication, use email more often, get more people signed up on our social media and our email listserv.
I think this one's really hard because I think you generally engage with a group of people that's pretty finite, at least on social media, because, that's something that I've been trying to do is, talk about city council agendas and, just kind of do Q&As. But I think a lot of people in this survey, I noticed they didn't even know we were on social media. They were suggesting that we get on social media. So maybe in some ways too, doing more posts is great, but also just making sure people understand that we are posting at those places. Cause I think that is, outside of text messages, the quickest way to get information to people.
Yep.
I would say though, if we're emailing a newsletter, being able to link that with a social media becomes a lot easier. And that makes it easier to do like more surveys like this because we're sending it to everybody. I don't know.
Are there hyperlinks in our email newsletter? I can't remember. Oh, okay. That's great.
Hyperlinks, and then we started doing QR codes as well.
Oh, great.
Perfect.
In there. But yes, these types of recommendations, please keep reminding us till we get those things up and running. In each of the different notification methods.
I'm sorry, I forgot you guys had mentioned before, who do they need to contact to get on the email newsletter list?
Yeah. And that's in the newsletter right now too, like in the mayor's
Okay.
message. So,
Sorry.
oh no, it's okay. I'm just saying that was kind of the
Mayor's
great.
pointing out that maybe I didn't read the full newsletter.
No,
Sorry.
I'm just saying that's the great thing is when you get suggestions that are a really easy solution, like start providing email newsletters, and it's like, yep, we've got that. So that's why I say though, I think a lot of it's just education rather than, or at least some of it is about just saying, hey, this is available rather than necessarily like modifying how we do it.
And we'll get to these were areas where we clearly just need to improve and place more emphasis. I didn't put water on here because we're basically maxed out. We're doing everything we can to emphasize water. But these are areas where we may have not fully noticed or been aware of these items. Water would be number one on this list of emphasis or priorities right now. It's just, we're already maxed out at that, doing everything we can. One other item on here I did want to point out is the code enforcement officer. It's something that we've been working on jointly with Hyde Park and the North Park Police Department, and we'll put together those items. We're waiting on Hyde Park for just a few items that they're updating in their code, and then we'll bring that before the city council. There'll be something that we'll look at in the coming months to go out in a part-time manner and just do code enforcement. You saw the entire slide with all the nuisance requests. Those would be items that they would be addressing, that individual. These items would be items to clarify. Something that we've looked at and the mayor's looked at is doing like a frequently asked questions and placing an emphasis on that, and providing clarity. So the first item on there, development and process. So a lot of people don't understand when a development or subdivision comes in, there's always a speculation like the city really wants this subdivision or we're pushing for it. And unless it's a commercial subdivision, that usually isn't the case. It's more just applying code. And so going through that and how the code is developed and what restrictions the cities have. Coming down through here though, communication methods, how people can get signed up, what you brought up, things that we can maybe include in there, how we can reach out. Pool and recreation center, just education on that. Trails, Bonneville Shoreline Trail, what we're doing in that regard, and then canal trails. And canal trails are very tricky because some people own across the canal or to the middle of the canal or to the edge of the canal. And each property is very different as you go along the canal trail. A lot of people don't realize that, how difficult that is to work through. But we do have several canal trails throughout the city that are already formalized. I mean, several hundred yards of canal trails. But then there's other areas where it's private property. And so working through that. And taxes, this is an area of basically education, in my opinion. The reason I say that is because people may not realize, one, where your property taxes go. So when they pay property taxes, do they realize that 13% comes to the city and the rest does not? And that's the area that the city council and the mayor have control over, is that 13% of that property tax. Do they realize that that's actually dropped over the last several years? That proportion or portion of the pie has gone down that North Logan receives. Another thing is assessment that I saw, very common. People have said that their property was appraised very highly or assessed very highly. And that's the county. And the city doesn't have any control over that in any way. And the third is that the North Logan City, the one area you do have ultimate control over is your property tax rate. But to know that North Logan is below average in that is very, reassuring to the citizenry. They need to know that. And so that's something that we always want to emphasize, keep in that light, keep low, to where the city council has done a good job of managing that. And then potholes, I gave you the education on potholes. Like people, if they do have a pothole or request or anything else, they can always reach out. But in the winter, if you see them fill a pothole, I saw one on 16th East, they filled it that day by the time I even got to them and said, hey, there's a pothole here. And then the next month it'll probably unravel until we can get real asphalt in those potholes. So just things that the mayor probably put together, some education items. Communication's huge though in this regard.
Yeah. So, and this is one thing that I've already started working on is just, I've gone through the comments, like the open-ended questions on this and just pulled out kind of the themes that I've seen, and they're consistent with what Alan's found, but and I've started to address those on my social media, but I think what the plan is to continue to do that, to do in the newsletter, to reach people wherever they get their news from the city. But I would encourage the same from everyone, not necessarily on social media, but in, answering questions. That's a priority, to be transparent. When we do raise taxes, I want it to be, I want it to be really talking about what that looks like, why we're making the decisions that we are, I think, err on that side of things. So anyway, I'm encouraged by this overall, and I think it's really helpful. I appreciate the input from everyone to kind of just get an idea of what's on people's minds. I think we knew some of them. We know that growth is always going to be a touchy issue. But even just, I did a Q&A on my Instagram, and even just people finding out that that if an applicant complies with city ordinances and state code, that we cannot deny their application for development if there's not a request for a rezone. That was really surprising, I think, to a lot of people. So I think there is a big element of education here, and sometimes it's boring. I mean, we're talking about taxes and land use planning and development. So it's an uphill battle, but I do want that information to be there. And I think our intention is long-term to have static things on our website where people can go if they have questions about something. So anyway, any other questions or input from the council? And you guys also are welcome to read through what I have too, compiling the comments, so you guys can kind of see what I've seen. I'll email that to you guys.
How often do we intend to survey the same survey? Are we looking at
Um,
annually, or?
A lot of cities do it annually or every other year. Down in Utah Valley, they'll spend 50,000 for these surveys every year.
Qualtrics, gotta pay
Qualtrics.
Qualtrics down there.
However, we'll look at that. The reason that we don't want to wear people out with surveys is because we'll have several surveys that will go out with a general plan.
Okay,
So in the next few months, as we start that process, we'll constantly be soliciting input from the citizenry throughout that process.
I think I'll just add, I actually took the survey when I got a Parliament message. Even though it came in my email, I just had forgotten it, over a couple of days, and the Parliament came out. So I just, recognize the city staff for thinking of those ways to get that out this year. And I have to believe that's why we had such a high response rate, is that it was just simply marketed.
And our citizens
More
are just
aggressive.
amazing.
That too. Yeah.
One other thing Emily's brought up in the past is something I hadn't thought of, is posting these results to the citizenry.
Yeah.
And so tomorrow, I think the interns, unless there's edits or changes or anything else you see, they'll probably post the results of the survey, and just encourage citizens to look at that and be familiar with the results of the survey.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
think
great.
that's a great idea.
Is it worth Parliamenting that too with a link, honestly, for the results?
Actually, I would say yes,
I do too.
if there's ability to do that.
I'm shocked
we don't
by
wanna
the
flood
number of
people,
people
but-
who said text messages were their favorite way.
Yeah.
I thought people
Yeah.
were, I just assumed people were annoyed by that, but
Oh,
Well, I think we're
I was
pretty
gonna say
selective,
my
right?
favorite emails from the city though come from Jesse, because he writes down all of the recreation stuff. And as a person who uses like all of those right now, they're really helpful. And then the Parliament, because they're generally telling me something that's very important for my area. Like, hey, there's going to be fireworks, or I don't know, something.
Yeah, it's fairly selective, which is good, right?
Yeah,
That's what I
it's-
think.
they're not sharing everything, just what I need to know. I don't know.
I don't know. What do you guys think about that? About texting a link to the survey results?
I would say yes.
We can text out the reason that we usually send a lot more emails and phone calls is not because emails are the most effective method. It's because we're so restricted on the number of characters. I think it's like 150 or something like that. So when we send out a message, you literally have to write in shorthand and say, please look at link, and then just add the link.
You should be able to get more out of it than that. I mean, 150, you can still, city survey results here.
Yes,
And then,
you'd be surprised though.
yeah,
And then a tiny URL.
Mhm.
a tiny.
Okay. Any other comments on that or questions? Okay, thanks for your work on this, Alan, and pass along that to the interns. I know that was a heavy lift for
They
them.
did a really good job.
Okay, all right, we'll move on to discussion regarding green waste, solid waste services in North Logan. We've asked Blake to come here. He's from Waste Management, and he'll answer any of your questions. So.
Yeah, Mayor, Council, first and foremost, thanks for having me. My name is Blake Leonelli. I oversee our government affairs. And this has been, although it's probably somewhat new to all of you, this is something that we've been working on for years. with other cities. So, to kind of put everybody at ease, this wasn't something just thrown together and it happened. We're very excited about this project. I wanted to give you a few updates, but I also wanted to make it very conversational. So as you have questions, as you have thoughts, we want to be part of your community. As we look at the CWC, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel here. We're a Fortune 100 company with a lot of resources. So although this seems new to many of the cities here, this is something we do across the country. We are the largest hauler, landfiller, landfill, recycle operator in North America. So we have quite a few resources as it relates to this. We're very excited about this opportunity. I can give you a few updates. We're very close to finalizing everything. We are looking to become a business here in North Logan as well, which is very exciting. We're also looking to expand our resources as we come in here to really look for areas of opportunity and be part of your community. So as you look for things, I saw specifically a pickleball tournament. If you need sponsors for that, let us know. But we want to be part of your community. So if there's events or things that we can help within your community, please reach out to us. As residents have questions, don't feel like you need to field those phone calls. Mayor Peterson has my contact info. Push that out to me. That's what I'm here for. I'm here pretty much Tuesday through Thursday. The Cache Valley is my home during that time. So really looking to be that added resource for you to offload some of that heavy lifting as you get questions, and we can help out. So I'll take a breath real quick. I see you run a very tight agenda, which I'm impressed by. But wanted to see if there's some questions initially that I may be able to answer.
Do you guys have any questions? I can just give you an update because we met earlier today with the executive committee of the Cache Waste Consortium and attorneys, and we're really close. We're going to meet next Tuesday, I think, to finalize that agreement. So, and I can speak, Alan, also to the green waste aspect of this, because that's been a really big part of our discussion. And Blake, obviously you can weigh in as well. But any other questions?
What happens with the existing recycling cans and garbage? Oh, sorry. What happens with our existing cans?
Yeah.
We are looking at options right now. We are looking to keep those in place potentially. If not keeping those in place, we'd provide all new, but we're looking at current options for that.
Does that require purchase from Logan City? Is that part of the negotiation?
It is. That is part of the negotiations. All of those things are on the table. We are in talks with Logan City, and something that we're currently evaluating and in what's best for the cities and kind of on a go forward basis.
So, and then the other question I have is, I probably should have asked you about this, Mayor, because you probably already know, but I haven't heard, any forecasting on what costs are going to be to residents. Do we expect an increase in what we currently pay to Logan City for waste management?
I can't answer that because I don't have specific rates of what you'll charge the residents. As far as, what that looks like from us to you, I believe it's very much in line with where you're at, but specifically, I can't speak to that because you may, depending on how you charge we're not charging residents directly. That'll be up to you and the businesses.
Yeah, and I will add with that, there are some question marks, like Logan signaled that they're going to be raising tipping fees, and that's obviously going to be passed along to us. And it also is determined by how these negotiations go, how much we get cans for and trucks and all of that. But it's in line with what we're currently paying. And I'll just say this indulgently, I think that we're in the best place in the Valley in terms of, I think we're in a really great position in this.
Yeah, can I add just a little bit to that? The CWC should be commended for the process in which they've taken. From what I've seen from outlying areas, it's kind of been, hey, let's hurry and do this. The CWC has not done that. They've really taken their time. They put together a strong effort, dotted I's, crossed T's. If you think it's going to go seamless and there's not going to be a hiccup, there will be, okay, just to set proper expectations. But you're in a very strong position, as you go forward. And with having the resources of a company like Waste Management, we're able to negotiate some of those strong position points.
Yeah, and also just to add, we're aiming for October 1st. I don't know if we've mentioned that.
October 1st, possibly sooner, possibly, but that is a target date. We feel like right now we're trending very much towards that date. Things have gone thus far very smooth. But things happen on both ends. To be able to move that up, to move it back. We have been working with Logan City. They're on the same page as us as far as what that looks like.
Alan, do you remember in the early, we've been in Logan forever with garbage. Was there ever something in the contract that said at some point, is it always, the can's always been the property of them? I mean, because at some point you pay so much, right? And they haven't replaced my can for years. So at some point there's an opportunity.
Do it right now.
If you
Roger,
depreciate my
right
can,
now.
if you depreciate my can's free. They gave us notice. So I'm just letting the record show that at some point, did we have anything in writing eventually?
No.
No, but I would get a new can right now. Do it.
No, but if you find that, that'd be awesome. Just so
So
you know.
that was some of the heartache, I think, when Logan City made this announcement, that suddenly everyone kind of realized that we'd been paying a mortgage payment on a landfill and on trucks and everything, and we own nothing.
It
And
was more of a lease payment.
yeah, so a
Bunch of
lot of
garbage.
so a lot of people, I mean, that probably took up a month of just being angry. We've been through the grief cycle here. So Roger, welcome. Glad to have you on board.
Well,
But
I know, but
but there's not a lot. I mean, we've had attorneys look over this, and because everyone was quite flabbergasted by that in the beginning. And no, we do not own the landfill. We do not own our cans.
my can's cracked.
Replace it, Roger. Do it right
Yeah,
now.
right away. Do it in the you don't want a nice fancy new Waste Management one. Get one right now. So
Yep.
no, great question, but yeah, we've evaluated that as well. And unless something comes out of the works that nobody's aware of, but you're where many others are right now. So congratulations. Any other questions? I mean, and I encourage all of you, you have my contact information. Don't go at this alone. If you have a question, reach out, and get some time with your residents, ask questions. As they have questions, reach out to us as well. We're here as a resource. Mayor Peterson probably knows this as well as I do at this point, because she's been very involved in this process and she should be commended for that. But we're very close on this and just excited to be up here. This has been something that we've looked to do for many, many years. So to have it come to fruition, we're just really eager about the process and being involved in the entire community.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. And I look forward to this partnership as well. I think it's one of the reasons that we chose Waste Management as a consortium, just the expertise, knowing that waste is a surprisingly complex issue that maybe people don't always recognize. So I'm encouraged by that. I think, like I said, I think we're in a really strong position, and I anticipate that we'll ramp up our communication about this once we're in a contract.
Yeah,
So.
and we have a 5-prong approach. If a resident doesn't know what's happening, I'll be shocked by the time we go to service, because this isn't something where we just come in and we say, okay, we're here now. There's a multifaceted approach. We'll come to all the communities, find out how best to reach your residents, what that looks like, and making sure that we're visible and communicating what the next steps look like throughout the process.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Blake.
Yep. Thank you.
Let's just touch on green waste. You're good unless people have questions.
Just in case
Okay.
something comes up, I can say.
So where we are currently is that Logan City has given notice that they won't be providing the roll-off bins, the large dumpsters for green waste this summer. So that's still likely to be the case unless we negotiate something different. And when I say we, cities, not Waste Management, because Waste Management we don't pass that baton until October 1st, potentially. So So on that note, that will likely have to be a direct haul unless something changes. And that would be us talking to Logan and saying, hey, don't pull out before we have coverage essentially. But then moving on to the future, the setup that we're contemplating right now is continuing the green waste dumpsters, but we will be billed per haul. And so currently, as Alan pointed out in this information, we do get a lot of Hyde Park residents. We get a ton of Logan City residents because Logan doesn't currently even have a roll-off bin in Logan City. So I'm assuming we pay for the haul and then also for the tonnage on that.
No, it's just part of our agreement with them.
Okay.
Currently. And you are correct. So just as we did informal surveys a few years ago as people were coming in. And we have a large amount of Logan City residents that come to our bins in Elk Ridge. North Logan has the most green waste. Now, that's not a very valid statement. It's not like we have more bushes, trees, and grass clippings than any other city.
But Roger, look for that claim in the future. The
but
top in the
We're the world's
nation.
best green.
What I mean by that is we have
Greenest.
3 bins in our park that we made Logan drop off a 3rd bin because we had so much. Is because we're handling the east side of Logan and the north side of Logan City and the east and the south side of Hyde Park City. Our bins were basically full by 8 a.m. every day throughout the entire year. On Saturdays, it was like 7 a.m. I mean, when you go out there, and so all 3 bins would fill up, and one was only really for grass clippings, and that would fill up. So literally, like North Logan, we're kind of the deficit where everything in the entire area comes to overfill our bins. And trying to come up with solutions. That's what we did a few years ago when we talked with Logan, went over several options. But now the only option that we need to look at is, one, if we're going to continue this service going forward, what do we do? Are other cities going to participate? That was a question I asked down below. If we do that, if we're the only city participating, we basically should not do that. Because if we're the only ones participating, they're already full by 8 a.m. every day. And then our staff has to go out, clean up around the outside when people just dump on the ground around the bins. The entire rest of the day, they do that. And then Logan would drive in and see that there was a limb peeking up out of the top of the bin, turn around and drive off. And so
Self-haul is free, right? For green waste. It
When
is.
you go
yes,
direct
when
haul.
you go there for now. Once we sign a contract and we start moving forward, they're going to charge not only our residents, but the entire all the residents in the county, including Logan City.
What contract you
Because
talking
they
about?
have to.
Waste management's contract in October.
Yeah, once we're out of the contract with Logan City.
So our biggest
Yes.
concern is this summer though, right? Just
Yeah.
understanding that we have that gap to fill.
Yes.
Yeah, so Ellen, I will speak to that a little bit. The other cities are planning on maintaining the current location of roll-off bins throughout, but we really are going to have to decide how we're going to police that, because another big aspect of this is commercial, what do you even call that? Landscapers
A
who
business.
come and just dump all their stuff for free, which
Mhm.
we just can't basically be covering that for people. So
Yep.
we're going to have to tighten that up, and I don't know exactly how that's gonna look, but we've got to, because it's going to be on a per haul basis. And like you said, if Logan City's not offering it at all to their residents, then we'll effectively be paying for whoever is proximate to us.
Yeah, or Hyde Park or Smithfield. So if they're not participating, we're the next stop.
Yeah,
before
I
you go
don't-
all the way to Logan.
Do you know anything about Smithfield or Providence?
I've been told no.
Okay.
So that's,
Are they even doing curbside green waste?
I don't, I would have to confirm on that. I know on a go forward basis, they're not doing the green waste bins, but I don't know about the green waste, but I could let you know by tomorrow. I could
Okay.
confirm on that.
So we're going, like, the way that we're discussing the contract right now is putting the onus on the cities to make sure that we're managing that. And so we're going to have to do something, whether it's presenting your driver's license that has your North Logan address on it or something like that. That's just kind of what we're gonna have to move to, and then banning commercial, like it's going to tighten up. That's the difficulty of this process, is that we've had a pretty sweet deal. Like that's what I've been hearing over and over from basically everyone who bid on this contract, to have the unlimited green waste services, to have a recycling facility very close. There's a lot about this that we've had a really good deal. So we're competing with something that isn't an option anymore, So I think all of us would prefer to maintain the status quo as cities, but that's just not an option available right now.
Just a few things to consider. And I have to say this because some of our crew members are here and they'd kill me if I didn't. Parks crew, they literally have to go over there with the backhoe hours each day to keep the site clean as people are dumping. I mean, that is a ton of money. If you're talking about taking a backhoe and having an operator in there operating that throughout the entire day, that's really a waste of taxpayer money at that point. Right now, I mean, with hiring the last few years, as soon as Taco Time and Del Taco went up to $20 as an entry level for their employees, part-time employees, we've literally had to struggle. At that time when they did that, we were paying $10 an hour. And so we've had to bump up our wages, bump up everything. We're still not fully staffed at this point. So to do what you're describing, we would literally have to have someone there full-time throughout the entire day, monitoring as people come up and having them show their driver's license, indicate that they aren't a business, and then they would be able to dump in the dumpsters. I'm just saying the reality of this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's going to have to be a consideration that we decide on, so because waste management is not going to monitor that. And so it really probably will have to come down to, can we man that, and is it worth it? Is it a service that we can afford as a city, basically?
Well, I think, the biggest complaints I got last year was that what you said, it was always full. So we had, a lot of residents that were calling me saying, I mean, do you guys ever empty it? Yeah, gets emptied all the time, but we have so many commercial entities and others using it. I mean, I just almost wonder if it's even worth the hassle at this point, and
Or do you have certain days that you?
Well,
only
there is
get
that one
somebody
day-
To man it. and
unless you
somebody's
have
bringing it,
full enforcement.
charge
If we're
them.
not
I
there
agree,
all the
Buzzy,
time,
but
unless you have
then
full
you
enforcement.
can't do that 24/7.
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing that we do is we have to shut the gate, but
Yeah.
shutting the gate isn't good because we have a resource there, the BMX course.
Yeah.
So when we shut the
I'm with
gate,
you.
people can't get into
Yeah.
park there and utilize that
Mhm.
resource.
I just feel like it's gotten to a point where the people that actually would utilize it and should utilize it the most can't. And so
I
we're
agree.
subsidizing other
Yep.
uses, and it's become just.
And not even necessarily in North Logan City
right.
uses, like
It's not
that's,
our own
and it
folks.
really is never intended for commercial landscapers to use. It's just not. So this is going to have to be something that we talk about. I think we wanted to carve out a space for it in the contract so that we have some assurance that that's available if it's something that we want. We know how much it's going to cost per haul, $335.
$335.
$3.35.
No,
Sure.
okay, Buzzy.
I should be negotiating.
Wishful
Yeah, you should.
I should be negotiating.
Um,
All right, 350.
It's $335 plus tonnage, so
yeah.
it tends to be very light. That green waste is not going to be like trash. There's a market for it. So tonnage will be limited, but yes, the haul rate will be $335.
Yeah, so this is something we're going to have to discuss, but these are the parameters that we're working within. There's, it's,
I remember the description on when the one time you went down there to police it, and just the comments and the way that the employees were treated by just people that were mean. It's not, I'm sorry. I mean, and that's unfortunate that a few of those make it hard to police. I don't even know if you could police it. And if they have a truck to get it there, they have a truck to take it down to Logan City during the hours. You might have to use their lunch and get it to the Logan City.
Yeah, that's probably really the decision there is, one, can we find someone? One, that would be their job would be to monitor the green waste. One, can you even fill that position? Two, do we pay for that position? And three, the other option is, do we just eliminate the bins at this point? I think the only other option is what the mayor described, where I asked Logan Environmental, I said, would it be an option if the cities, because there is a cost inherent in this, what if we put some money into the pot to have it for one more summer and have them provide it? They said that wouldn't be an option because they can't even staff their own green waste haulers at this point. But that would be something that the mayors could maybe just get together. That would be a last ditch effort to just see if there's any way they could haul it for this summer. Those are really our only options on the table, right?
Yeah.
Why not charge the people that are actually using it?
Because it's free at Logan. If we did charge a fee, we'd have to have someone there to monitor and take a fee. And then number two, it's free at Logan for this summer.
Well, then they're gonna go to Logan.
I mean, it does feel like to me that this might be the good year to pull back and see how it goes.
As a person who has driven to Logan on a Saturday more than once to drop off green waste, I might pay a fee to stay at North Logan.
Yeah.
Because it is such a,
Yeah.
it is a little
That-
bit, it's.
It's just staffing.
That's why I brought back the question. It wouldn't be realistic to have someone stand there with an iPad and cube and take money
Well, if
for
you
a square.
gate it I mean, I don't know, I need to look at it, but I'm just wondering if there were certain times that you could go. So it's not all 24/7.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good
Like
point.
saying, look, you have Saturday 8 to 10 and you must show your address. I don't know.
I don't think limiting is a bad idea. I think that
So
might be a good
the-
option.
The one thing that we haven't mentioned though, is that when people don't have access to green waste disposal, they dump it in ditches and
Gravel
in
pit.
drainage areas. And that's the big concern. I know that the county is really concerned with this aspect of it because it starts to show up in just, it just becomes a landfill everywhere.
Can I
So,
just 2
Yeah.
seconds, we have lots of different options here. And as we've spoken to Mayor Peterson about this, we do this throughout the entire country and every city, every county is different. But, if you're looking for kind of a hybrid approach, some people do a spring cleanup where it's manned for, or they have an individual there for, a 5-day period. And so it's, done that way. And then in the fall, it's done for a 5-day period. There's lots of
That's not a
different
bad idea.
options that can be done as it relates to that. And people make it a fun event. They hoard onto their green waste, they dump it. Cities have big barbecues over it. So there are some options around that. If that's potentially a concern that you have. I mean, we want to be nimble for you. We want to be a resource. So we'll bring those options to you, but that's something that we see throughout not only Salt Lake and the entire, Wasatch Front, but we see it across the country where they do some kind of a hybrid approach of that.
That's not
Yeah.
the worst compromise, to be honest. with you.
Right.
I know we'd have to manage it ourselves this summer, but. 2
city
or 3
council will
major
take a
dumping
rotation,
sessions.
right, Buzzy?
I do it. I'd sit in the booth with well, and I would say if we did that, right, there wouldn't be a payment. I would assume we would just say, these are the 2 or 3
Yeah,
times.
you just provide that
Yeah.
as a service a couple times a year,
And
in
those are-
addition to the Christmas
It's a good
trees.
compromise.
we can't do it across the entire year, but that's even something we could potentially help out with as well that we do in other communities. Just food for thought.
I mean, how
bring
we
it-
have 7 months of snow here, so we wouldn't need it.
So I've
Yeah.
heard,
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my time in Arizona as well, and this has been a shock to me, this cold, so just so you know. But yeah, so we'll continue to bring those options for you, but just food for thought as you think through that, there's options.
Thank you.
All right, so that will be a topic that we'll continue to discuss, and I can just keep you guys updated if there is conversation with Logan City about this summer having some roll-off bins.
Sort of when do we need to make a decision or? maybe even just-
Realistically, it's not till next year.
Okay,
Correct. I mean,
Okay.
this is something, and we even talked about this. Barring snow, I mean, this isn't even something you have to look at from April to October. This is something that we can do on an as needed basis. So
Just
we're
to-
nimble that way.
Just a correction on that, when we need to know, we have to make the decision by next month.
Yeah, as far as
Okay.
working with
Oh,
Logan
I'm talking about
City.
waste-
No.
WA.
I was actually what Alan was referring
Okay,
to. I was like,
perfect.
oh, that's longer than I thought. we had.
Oh, so
Sorry,
yeah,
I'm
we're talking
getting-
about two different issues, long-term and short-term.
I
So
was wondering the
short
short term.
term, typically it
Thank you so
starts
much,
first
though.
week of April, is that right?
Okay,
Mid-April. and
Okay.
They'll come out and they'll put the bins in the park.
I don't think we're going to be I think you're gonna hear from a lot of people that they're really frustrated with this when people realize.
is the sooner that we can tell people to change their expectations, the better, I feel like, and this might.
Well,
be-
and maybe that's the way
a
to
good
do it at this
mention.
point is to say Logan City has announced this. Period. And then if we can make any headway with it, I have not broached that conversation with Mayor Daines,
Okay.
but
I just know that setting people's expectations correctly is maybe our best bet at this point.
okay. Okay.
Good.
All right,
Thank you
thanks so
for
much,
having me.
Blake.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. We are on discussion regarding the process to bond for a recreation center. Alan, take it away.
I'll go with this. A few questions have already been brought up regarding this. So you saw the massive, overwhelming response that people are, without a doubt, supportive of the recreation center. And then they are supportive financially, as well, which is rare, as Buzzy brought up. That is very rare to see that. As you go through here, in order to do that, though, we would probably need to form a committee, start looking, and we've already started looking at designs, what we could do. And then we'd have to go out to bid if we're going to select an architectural firm and go through that process. The reason we'd have to go through that process is because we would have to go out to what's called a GO bond, a general obligation bond for property taxes. And that would have to go on the ballot. Other bonds, like we have a CIB bond, we have a DEQ bond. Those don't go to the ballot or out to a vote. Those are things that we just bond for through those enterprise accounts. However, a GO bond, because it would be general property taxes, has to go out to a bond. So it'd either be on this November ballot or the next November ballot regarding that. In order to submit that item to for consideration, we'd have to submit to the county by July 26th of this year. So steps before then, we would have to have an architectural firm do some rough designs. We would have to have a cost. And then we would have to go out to bond and we would have to have a rough amount. We would also, at that point, need to know who some partners were in that regard. And we've done some preliminary discussions, but we'd probably want to talk with the county, obviously Utah State, because they don't have a swim facility, a competitive swim facility. The school district, because Green Canyon High does not have a pool. I see all of these different entities that need training facilities. And so we talk with them about the rec center and partnering up in that fashion. We already have a fantastic relationship with the high school. We do several things with them. Utah State is already using the HSC facility, and they use the ice center as their home for their hockey team. And so looking at those types of things could be a collaborative approach, and we'll approach them in the coming weeks and months regarding that. But that would be a way to partner up, have them use this particular facility for certain hours a day, sponsor it in that regard, and then hopefully help reduce the cost down of the bond. So that we get it into that range that people specify between the 25 and 125 for the bond.
Can you just tell us, I know you shared with me one of the big benefits about the ice arena and how it ties to the rec center in this case and approval.
Oh, yes. So there have been studies. Someone actually brought us in, I think it was Lloyd brought us in a study that someone did the exact heat exchange between this same exact type of facility where an ice center is located next to a pool. And they just measured the heat exchange between the two, and there was a net positive, meaning there was leftover energy at the end of the day that was used when you take the heat out of the ice. You're actually removing heat. I don't know the physics behind this, but then you put it into the pool, into the pool to heat the pool and the facility at that point, if they so desire. And so at the end of the day, your biggest cost has been eliminated, which would be heating. Heating of the pool and heating of the facility at that point. And so your other costs at that point are obviously the capital costs, employee costs, and then just other general facility costs to operate the facility once the capital is covered. The water would be covered through North Logan City at that point.
Any questions on all of this? I think we're just in the very preliminary phase of this. I think answering the question of partnerships is going to determine the scope of this project. You know, if we're building a rec center for North Logan, that is one project. And I think that if we're building a rec center to serve the entire valley, that's an entirely different project. So what I don't want to do is place the burden of a facility like this that realistically is a county facility, in terms of usage, on the backs of North Logan residents. So that's something that we're trying to look into, is this, there's a need valley-wide for this, and there's obviously people are very supportive of it, but in my view, this is not a North Logan project. This is a partnership kind of situation.
And then talking timelines, if we did go North Logan route on the ballot, it's either this November or 2 years, correct? So we
Yes,
would have
either
a
this
ballot next year.
November or next November, the following November would be the two things that we would shoot for, two most likely.
What would we have on the ballot a year from this November?
Just this.
It would just be this. So
Presidential.
no, that's in 2 more years, right? Isn't it? Is my math wrong?
2024 is next year.
2024.
Oh yeah, that is next year. Okay, scratch that.
You scared me.
I see a great use for it. And I have, when the survey was going out, talking to people, there's so many people that drive down to Provo because of how well that one was done.
Yeah.
So if we had something like this, we're going to reach out for people all over.
I think it does make
Yeah.
sense to reach out to the county though across the valley though, because North Logan's already, and Roger likes this, double the next highest city in recreation participants right now. Which really covers itself though. I mean, each participant that comes in and plays, pays, they play, pay to play. And so they basically cover the costs, that bolsters our recreation budget, and they're able to operate at such a minimal amount at that point.
I
So
just have a hard time believing there aren't other communities in the valley already talking through the same conversation. But,
Do you?
Yeah.
I think
I
they have
know.
a tax base.
I think
don't
Logan,
have a hard
didn't
time
the
believing
district kick
that.
Logan out of their
Um,
recreation center.
yes, they're in the,
well, it depends on who you ask. Logan states it the other way around, like
Oh,
that
they say
they're
they
Logan doesn't
bailed
have
out.
getting rid of
land
it.
that we do.
I will just say, Buzzy, just
Allocation.
informally in conversations that I've had, I don't know that Logan's looking for that. The county,
Yeah, what's the
to say that
what's the temperature
diplomatically,
there?
it's hard to know. So that's a big question mark for me, and I think that that's a really big initial step that we need to clear. But it's not something that the county, to my knowledge, is working in earnest on. Like, I don't think that they will do that on their own. But I wouldn't assume that they wouldn't support it, but I don't think it's something that they're doing already. But Roger might know.
there's really only
Yeah,
two other
Roger.
cities large enough to do this. It's just Logan and Smithfield that could put together a recreation center.
And us, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know about Smithfield. I
was-
haven't.
Smithfield has a recreation
Yeah.
center. so
Yeah.
This would just be an expansion of their recreation center if they ever did anything at this point.
Logan City, I just remember, this is years ago. The reason I gave it to municipal is they were losing $150,000 a year on that building. Now, I'm not saying it was the best facility, and that's why they abandoned that. Gave it to a guy for scuba to get his corner for where Walgreens is.
But
And then
keep
they
in-
went to the, the.
when you
slide.
talk 150,000, keep in mind their parks and recreation budget is $8 million.
Yeah, and
So
maybe that was their reason, maybe that was their excuse for getting her, I don't know, but. I mean, in the paper at the time, and this was when I was younger, that was the talk, well, why are you shutting down that pool? And they didn't even have the other pool built. Was it because they were losing, I don't know, but maybe that was the answer they gave at the time. But I think sometimes it's gotta be net positive money making.
So anyway, I think, this is the beginning of this conversation, and I can kind of keep you guys updated on how those conversations go with other entities. But, Buzzy, the way I see it is that if, say, Smithfield does have plans to build an indoor pool, have at it,
Yeah, I agree.
like,
Yeah.
I think that the valley just has an appetite for a pool. I don't think it necessarily needs to be in North Logan. To be frank, I'm really tired of managing these sorts of projects. We're in the thick of a lot of them right now. So if another municipality or the county wants to take this on solo, I'd welcome it. Hyde Park, I bet they're on the verge. But so if that does turn out to be true, I'd welcome it.
As long as it had a lazy river.
Yes,
Yes.
Joni, we'll put an asterisk by there. Okay, all right, any other questions or comments on that one? Okay, let's move on to the exciting stuff. Fiscal year 2024 budget proposal from streets. Welcome, Colby. Dave, you're leaving as it gets good.
Are you going to Walmart?
All right, well, thanks for having me. So I work in the streets and stormwater, so I'll present both of those tonight. A lot of these are pretty straightforward, so for our revenues, we're looking at pretty much the same thing that we've had come in at least last year. So no changes there. And then we move down to our expenses. On the expenses side, we're operating at a pretty flat budget this year, so no increase. We've just kind of shifted some funds around to fulfill needs. The biggest one we need to look at is our surface treatments. Let's see.
Sorry. Cool.
Oh, you're all right. Right there, the 315. So pretty significant increase there. We're getting pretty aggressive with that. Alan's very generous when he talks about potholes. We have plenty of them out there, but this is one of the things that definitely helps keep our roads in good condition. As far as budgets go, I believe personally, you do want to see the lion's share of it go towards treatments versus reconstruction. And if we bring that down to our actual road reconstruction, contract construction, the 740, nope, let's see, 746, one more up. So I've got some bids together for, it's 2180 north, and that's a road that branches off of 1200 east, just north of the city office. And that came out to about $72,000. So that's definitely a road that we need to work on. There's nothing we can do to save it. If you, Alan, if you'll scroll over to the comments, one thing that we do need to prepare for in the future. I also got an estimate for 2500 north. That's one that is going to need to be done eventually. And as you can see, that alone is about 840,000. So that's going to take a few years to prepare for.
When you say that, to redo the surface of it,
So this is, the road's pretty dried out.
mhm.
There's no oils and stuff. That's a reconstruction on that. Hopefully it's not as significant as this. Until we do core samples, it's hard to tell exactly what the dollar amount is, but there are options out there. That's just something that needs to be on our radar because it will come eventually.
We have been bitten in the past before by hoping things will cool down and not maybe jumping the gun. So what are you doing to maybe help us prepare to pay that cost? Or what are we doing as a city right now?
The biggest thing that we can do is keeping our other roads in good condition. It's much cheaper to do that than a rebuild. Estimates show as much as $1 million a mile for a road reconstruction. So it's much cheaper to keep them alive up front. So that's the biggest thing that we can do. And then for roads like this, just prepare for it, look into the future. Asphalt begins to break down the day you lay it. So that's when the maintenance begins.
Where is that on 25?
So this would be for between Main Street and up to about 600 east. There's portions of that that are better than others. So obviously that could cut some of the cost. So this is just a general number to kind of plan for worst case, hopefully.
Where are you guys planning on chip sealing this year?
So being as aggressive as we have the past few years, we've chip sealed quite a few roads. Now, that's given us the opportunity to move on to other treatments. A chip seal is mostly just to have a wear surface on the road. A lot of our streets, we already have that. So all we basically need to do this year is put oil down on them. As long as we're keeping them oiled, keep them sealed up, that pushes out that breakdown period. You know, you'll see us out there crack sealing, stuff like that. That's just regular maintenance. And as long as we stay on top of that, we'll be ahead.
Oh, that's great news.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are our options. That's pretty much the biggest changes to our budget. Dollar wise, we're the same. So if you guys have any more questions, happy to answer them for you.
I do have a question. Roger, do you remember how many roads we had on our list like 5-7 years ago?
I only remember 1,000 East because my neighbors kept.
How long was that on that list?
It was really long.
So I remember there were 7 to 8 roads that needed complete replacement every year when we would come to these meetings. And we would literally debate about what to do and how to address that. And that was because back in the day, the city's approach was the roads are fine, but when they get to a point, you just completely replace them. You just grade them out and completely replace them. What Colby's described though is that is nearly 8 to 10 times as expensive as simply going in and putting, I hate to use this term, lipstick on the roads, but doing surface treatments, chip seals, slurry seals, crack seals, the rejuvenation oils that he's been using on the oil. It really just saves his entire budget long-term till we get to the point where we have a one short cul-de-sac. And then Colby surprisingly 2,500 north, but we literally have 2 roads on this list. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 others throughout the community, but to get down from 7 or 8 roads that were literally like huge roads throughout the city that we had to redo the entire subdivision to 1 or 2 roads is just a testament to going out and sealing all the different roads. So that's up to Colby and his crew for doing that in 7 years. It's paid off beyond belief.
Yeah, great job, Colby. It's nice to not be reactive on this, to kind of be preventative.
Yeah.
So
How are we doing with budget with the snow removal this year?
So this year, we have been about 10,000 over, as you can see there. That's just increased salt usage. I mean, we've really got hit hard. A few equipment repairs. On a normal year, we would have come out okay, but unfortunately, we're a little bit over there.
Yes, you can't do much about that.
yeah. Take it.
Well, I do want to say what a great job you guys did on the chip seal last year on my road. I thought it was great. And
Thank you.
my kids are a little sad that we haven't had school off because you keep plowing the road so well. So
Yeah, I don't know how you kept up
So
with it.
maybe
this
not
year.
work so hard. Sure. Did you hear them ask that? That was Main Street to where? Colby?
From Main Street up to 600 East, portions in through that.
Okay. Any other questions for Colby? Okay. And you're gonna move on to stormwater.
So just a clarification, stormwater is an enterprise fund. These aren't really differentiated between there, but an enterprise fund, it takes care of itself. Streets is a general fund item. Just so you know.
Yeah, so with that being an enterprise fund, not a whole lot to report here. We're pretty in comparison with revenues over the past few years, as well as expenses, and we're only spending what we bring in, so we do okay with that.
Okay.
Any
Any
questions?
interesting parts of this? Not anything notable?
Not particularly. We have a few supplies and repairs that we go through. Other than that, a lot of them are just agreements that we're in with the irrigation companies, stuff like that. So it's things
Okay.
that are pretty much allocated.
The major project this year that ate up any funds that we do have is right out here. We had to pipe the canal through this area, and you've seen that. That has a multifaceted benefit. One, just by piping, it opens up that area, but 2, that contributed to groundwater in the area. It actually causes damage to the police station over there. It pops windows out, cracks them with the heaving and thawing throughout the summer and winter months. And so by piping that, that'll help in that regard. And usually in the city, as you see flooding throughout the city, The only areas we really have trouble with is the lower canal, the Hyde Park Canal right here. That's this canal that runs along through here, the twin ditches. And in every storm, Colby's out there with Ryan Van Weert and Jordan, and they're opening up head gates to alleviate Logan, North Logan, and Hyde Park during those floods. And so this will help in some regard in hoping to move more water north.
Forgive this if this is a dumb question, but are you involved with the runoff? Like, do you guys have to do any preparation for the melting snow?
Yeah, so the past couple weeks, we've been out. I mean, we've hauled a lot of snow out of cul-de-sacs just because we've had a lot go down. We've also opened up storm drains, cut through some of the ice dams that are out there in our gutters, just to make sure that we're ready for any type of runoff that might come with the rain. And for the most part, I think we've been okay. I haven't found any big issues. We opened some head gates today with the rain that we got, but nothing really putting us in the danger zone. So
Okay, that's
it's been
great
okay.
news.
I have
Colby
one, but I'll
is-
share it with you after.
Okay,
Colby and his crew, they set up that sand filling station too, down at the street shop. His crew alone has filled over 700 bags. Which is incredible.
This is also probably a good time to mention that I hope that Jordan passes along to you, but that I got an email from a resident who said that she went down to get sandbags, couldn't fit them in her truck, had some North Logan City employees follow her home and put the sandbags out, and she was so appreciative. So I know you guys are going above and beyond. I know that I have a lot of other cities mad at me because we're setting a too high standard in terms of providing those sandbags for residents. So really, thank you so much.
of course.
I know. Okay, any other questions?
No, just thank you.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
see your trucks
thank
early
you.
in the morning and thank you.
Yeah.
Those are
I
awesome.
feel like I see them all the time. It's great.
Lately.
My boys are so happy.
If you could lift the blade as you.
All right, who's our sewer guy? Yeah, Zach. Sewer and water, Zach? Okay, sounds great.
So sewer, this year, we're gonna operate on a little bit of a budget, a little bit under budget this year. We want to try to save as much money as possible with not knowing what's gonna be coming in the future with the Logan trunk line. We've got to keep that savings account as high as possible. So I did do an expense budget that came out under. As you can see, it's pretty straightforward. There is some lines for some grant options. We are looking at some funding through different government resources to also offset some of that cost. But operationally, sewer's pretty easy on our end, since we don't have to do the treatment side, we just keep it flowing. So nothing too crazy to report as a change here. But if anyone's got any questions, I'll definitely answer those.
You're under budget. I like that. Thanks.
When you talk about the trunk line, when will we know about the potential grants and stuff like that? Is there a timeline on any of those things yet?
No, we're hoping as soon as tomorrow, but as
no.
far as no one's really said anything in stone. So
Okay,
there's a lot of people that say, yeah, we can help you. And then we're just waiting to hear back.
Okay.
So we're getting everything lined up. We've got all of our proposals, all the applications out. So as soon as it becomes available, they should tell us.
awesome.
And it feels like a near constant process, at least as much as I've been involved,
Yeah.
that you're always looking for those and applying, but it feels like you guys kind of have a well-oiled machine as far as our applications. We
Yeah,
know
we're doing
exactly what
okay.
we need.
Yeah, pretty much every time someone gives us some feedback, we go after a different funding source just to double down to make sure that we're covered.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and that, I think maybe we've talked about it in the past, but I think the hard part is that we're trying to put in the main trunk line as before land's developed. And so we're kind of at the mercy of that timeline.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that development pressure and us being ahead of the game. So we're
Yeah.
balancing it, but if we can keep that savings account, like our capital line and our fund balance and stuff high, we should be fine.
Okay.
Okay. All right, then let's move on to water then.
Water, I kind of took the same approach. Wanted to do an operating expense under budget based on our revenues. Revenues change every year with water due to whether we have restrictions or change in use. So I shot for that, kind of the same numbers as last year as far as revenue goes, felt safe. Operationally, there is one big change. And that would be to the infrastructure water line. Last year we approved 425,000. This year we're just gonna go 25,000. That's due to padding that savings account. So we're just shifting the funds from one line to another, just to make sure we have that ready to go for the future with how we've got our well coming on, distribution, storage, all those plans we've kind of talked about and have in place. Since we don't know a solid timeline, we need to make sure that carries over. So
What
Do we
you
have
most
any
likely see-
capital? Do we have any capital distribution lines that you're redoing this year? Or
Not-
are we only working on the tanks and the wells?
currently just the tank and well. If we can get that distribution line started this year, we will. But again, that's also, we're out to 3 or 4 different funding sources right now for
Okay.
that too. So
What,
we've got,
what you'll see, sorry, just to clarify on that, is you see a very minimal budget there and what Zach's estimating. And that is so that in anticipation, we can put more into that pot of money for capital, which is what we're investing in right now. And they're literally working 24/7 on these, literally 24/7. Sorry, Zach, on going through different options for updating this. What you'll see though, we're hopeful this year is that we'll get a grant / bond sometime throughout the year through the multiple different areas that Zach's looking at. And at that point, we would have to come back to the city council. At that point, we would have to take the capital, put it into the expense capital line.
Right.
But that would have to come before the city council. So you would know before
What
we actually
happens.
can finalize those items. And sorry, Zach, to cut you off. That's
No, you're fine.
basically, just so
that's
that you
exactly right.
know, Zach will be back before you at some
He will.
point.
Well,
Hopefully,
I hope
in
it's
the
sooner
next
rather
few
than
months.
later.
right, yeah, and we've got funding, we've reached out to like Division of Drinking Water, USDA, Rural Development, we're out with lobbyists, we've got other kind of private funding that we can pursue on top of the grants and straight loans we can also apply for. So tons of options with no answers quite yet, but we're working on it.
Zach, unrelated, but Alan,
Yeah.
I already shared with you the newsletter, mayor's message, or mayor's, is that still the mayor's message? This coming month is water related. And so I mentioned to Marie and Alan, if one of you guys could, I took some guessing in there.
Okay,
But they-
I
they're
haven't
right,
seen it
but
myself, but
I just sent it to him today. So feel free to,
okay, yeah, I can take a look at it and
Yeah.
just give it a thumbs up.
yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
Especially the second paragraph.
Just to make sure like.
Yeah.
Numbers.
Talk
are
about the
correct.
well and
Okay,
the,
yeah,
and the tanks.
I can
some
give
of
that kind of an update. Or change any of the timeline stuff. if it's in
Yeah,
there.
and if you feel like there's any, after you read the message, there's anything pertinent that you think should be added too,
Yeah.
so.
I'll
cool.
take a look at it
Write
for
it
sure.
for him. He-
One key
Just want to
aspect,
write it, yeah, just want to rewrite the whole thing, no problem.
one key aspect to that, even though there are several grammatical errors that I've read through that, but the
Listen to this
Buzzy
guy.
didn't even skip a beat on that one. No,
Never
the
expect to be a
emphasis
English
that Buzzy
expert.
puts in there is spot on that this year is going to be a record high year for water, for snowfall, for precipitation. And there should be no issues,
In 3
hopefully
years.
with secondary irrigation coming down, because that's immediate response. Our culinary
I knew you might
water that
wanna
we've
add that.
talked about has a 2-year lag time, so we will not see the water that is falling right now in snow for 2 more years within our wells. And so that's the description that we need to get across, is that we will see it still need to be on water conservation measures this year. Just because that will not be in the ground and we will not have
Yeah.
access to.
And
it.
there's a lot of focus on that, in that letter you noticed about still sticking to our
Yes.
conservation efforts, but if
It's
you want to.
gonna be painful. It really is. It's gonna be a tough pill to swallow.
I think
Yep.
though, if we can, because I was like, I feel like last year, what really helped is people saw it everywhere. Like you couldn't go anywhere in the city without seeing something about water conservation. So if we could use that same approach with like, hey, guys, it doesn't matter that like we had so much snow, we still need to be conservation. I think that will help a lot, is it won't feel surprising when it's like, you hear it from every source, like, hey, we still got to save water. Hey, we still got to save water.
Yeah, and the entire state of Utah, at least those water providers that I've talked to, my alliance group and kind of the group we work with, we're all on the same page. We're all gonna keep pressing the message. So no one's taking the foot off the gas on this one quite yet.
Awesome.
So
The only thing that was easier last year, though, that really helped us out was that all the secondary companies were right, lock, stock and barrel with us.
Yeah.
As far as water conservation, it aligned perfectly with
Not
us.
so much
This year,
and
not so
Yeah.
much. It'll be very different, as far as water conservation goes.
And that's hard because then you see secondary users often, using it
Mhm.
heavy and then others are
Yeah.
wondering why.
they're on a much
restricted.
different
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah,
we'll figure it
correct.
out.
There
Okay.
is a company
Okay.
and they're working with Utah State that are using microorganisms. So it would basically reduce us having to use the harsher chemicals that are in fertilizers, but what it's supposed to do is help save a lot of water. So is
If
that
used
something that,
correctly.
if used correctly, otherwise it can
It's
ruin
still an
stuff?
education game when it comes
Yeah,
to.
so you are familiar. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We've talked about all those things. They're all
Okay.
good. Anyone doing anything is a positive. So
As long as they're trained, it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
should
okay.
be okay.
Okay. Thank you, Zach. Yeah, give us update on our water capital improvement projects.
Okay, so I think Alan touched on it briefly at the beginning. That well, Green Canyon well number 5, they are pursuing total depth right now on their pilot hole. So they should, I think we're gonna get that well logged come this weekend. That'll give us our kind of mapping to where the fractures are, where the main water source is. Once we determine that, they'll take a 10-day period where they go home and relax for a minute, and then we'll order all the casing and the sanitary seals and everything that goes in it. Then they'll come back and they'll fully develop that well. And they're thinking, once they get to that point, with all of the challenges beat now, should just be a couple more weeks. So then we also have our well house. It's finished. The bid's been selected, or we've selected the contractor. It will look kind of like a mini city office. It's going to be the same color, tumbleweed. So
All right.
it should be okay up there in Green Canyon.
Tell me, they forgot to ask you for color advice.
I would love to help them.
Maybe a mural.
Yes. Then from there, we've sat down with a few third-party firms to discuss our water master plan and our water model. And we're zeroing in on our tank locations. We have that property that we purchased, the Gilgan property. They'll go in there somewhere. We're just trying to get elevations nailed down. Then we'll be out to bid, hopefully with a design on storage. So that's kind of our next 2 or 3 steps.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Zach.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to updates on the Civic Center. Alan?
I can just give you a rough update. They've poured the footings, portion of them out here, so fantastic. It's almost so muddy though that they can barely get equipment in there. And hopefully in the next couple weeks, next week doesn't look that good. Looking at
No.
the weather report, looks fantastic for snowfall, and rainfall, here.
Does anyone feel that way right now?
Which we should be grateful for. It sounds ungrateful for all the moisture we have, but the out here, the next point after they pour the footings, the next point is the foundation, and then in early April, the block arrives, and it's a structural block. So then they'll build it up from there, and we won't take too much from the well house to build the city office of that block.
Awesome. Oh, it's the exact same.
It's just the same color.
It is actually a good
Fade
color.
blush.
It's
It's
a
a
little bit, it's
tumbleweed-
like a
tumbleweed,
cream
that's
color,
what it
but
The tan color. It's the exact same color as our other well house. Zach made it sound like it's amazing. It's just split face concrete up there.
tumbleweed sounds better. And it'll
Tumbleweed
blend in.
sounds great.
Okay.
Then,
Any questions on that?
yeah, tumbleweed sounds better than a tan color.
A tan color.
Beige. Any questions on that one? Okay, we'll move on to reports from city officers, boards and committees. Scott, you want to start since you're furthest over?
Okay, just 2 quick updates. Our administrative appeal hearing that was held last week on a conditional use permit for a detached ADU was heard back on Wednesday, the 8th. We have received a written decision to remand that back to the planning commission for additional detail on findings of fact and conclusions of law. So that'll be going back to the planning commission. The story isn't over on that yet, but just a quick update on.
And Scott, maybe just to elaborate on that a little bit, there's a decision out of San Juan that just came down from the Court of Appeals maybe a month ago.
Literally a couple weeks.
That is really puts a very high standard on what planning commission and that we have to do. It's almost like a rendering a legal opinion, honestly.
It's any administrative opinion on a land use topic. So subdivisions, conditional use permits, and that falls in the council's wheelhouse from time to time.
Yeah. So we're working with Seth Tate to work through that so that we're giving an adequate basis for land use decisions. And I think the bottom line is we're ultimately going to be relying on staff to prepare those findings and then tweak those or modify those depending on the decision that the body reaches.
Yeah, and it's just an improvement to our best practices. Basically, we just need to make sure that we update our own practices so we're in a good place if a decision is ever appealed. So more to come on that. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the end of this week, Friday, the 17th, is a deadline for the city to submit an application to participate in a workshop. It's called Utah Growing Water Wise Workshop. It's put on by the Utah Division of Water Resources. It is a free 3-day workshop intended to help communities achieve the initial steps towards updating general plans. But not just our general plan, but a very specific component of our general plan, which is water as it relates to land use. So last year, the legislature said every community has to incorporate a water component into their general plan by 2025 that ties your water use to your land use. It's surprising that this hasn't been a requirement until now, but this is a component of our general plan, of an initial step towards our update that we need to take. And this is a great opportunity for free resources, basically free consulting that the city would greatly benefit from. The workshop is June 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's here in town at Utah State at Maverick Stadium. It's a big ask, but we need to put together a community team of technical staff and decision makers, about 7 to 10 individuals. Alan, do you want to open up that last link there? Utah Growing Water Smart application questions.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You okay? So we have to submit an application. We've already kind of worked through our responses there, but if you scroll down to the second page, there's a list of individuals that could potentially be on this team. I'm happy to be our team lead, pull us through this project, but then I've listed some city staffers. I've added Mayor Peterson. Not sure if you're available those days. But they do want to make sure we do have a few decision makers included on that team. From the Planning Commission, Nan Isaacson, our chair, has indicated that she would be available and happy to attend. So we'll be grateful to have her there in her time. Not sure who would maybe want to or able to. I know it's a big ask, 3 days in the middle of a work week. But we need to get that identified before the end of the
Is
week.
that the 6th, 7th, and 8th?
6th, 7th, and 8th of June. So it's
I
right
will
at the
look-
beginning of the summer, right after school gets out. It's a tough time.
I'll look at my calendar. This is something I've been helping with when I was in Harriman. And I'd love for us to get something like they do in South Jordan with their conservation garden. So maybe that's something that we could even
Yeah.
talk, even if we.
I could
if I'm
maybe
not
make
on
that
this,
one
I could
work.
help.
Let
Yeah.
me adjust my schedule.
Yeah,
But if
this-
you don't want more than, if you don't want 2 of us.
No, I
And
like
I'm-
2 of us.
I'm gone the 8th, unfortunately. It could do
Okay.
the first 2 days, but that's probably not
Okay.
gonna help you.
They want us to put together this team as early as March 17th because they do prepare quite a few resources for us in advance. So we just need to put this together, get it submitted, and then it'll be a great opportunity.
So I can be
there-
there. And then maybe Emily and Joni, you guys can get back to Scott about availability.
I'll see you tomorrow at Planning Commission. I can tell you then. I
Okay.
just need to check some other stuff.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, so just FYI, we'll put that application in Friday this week and we'll see where it goes from there.
Does it need to be just one or can you have 2 or 3 of us?
Yeah, 7 or 10 is the max. So you
That's
can see we got
max.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with the single city council member. So we could put 2 on and still be below that 10. Yeah, just kind of depends.
Okay.
Okay, that was the only other update.
Thanks, Scott. I know you've had a super busy schedule in the last week and a half, so
It's been fun.
thank you.
Scott, R5 tomorrow, or what?
Yeah,
RE5?
so there is, yep, so tomorrow there's a public hearing on a text amendment to language governing our R5, RE5 residential state 5-acre zone. How we calculate density in that zone, and it's probably going around the rumor mill at the moment with people who are gearing up to attend that meeting. It's not what maybe some of the rumors are. We'll get into the weeds on that, but those who would like more updates on it will probably have it before the council next the next meeting, which I believe there's one in April, mid-April is when we have that meeting.
Is that your first agenda item tomorrow night?
It is. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Yep, you're
Chief?
welcome.
All right. Thank you. First off, I guess we just wanted to update with what we did this week for calls and things. We had 102 calls that we handled, as well as 48 traffic stops that they engaged in. Most of the time, those calls were accident related. So we had 16 accidents that they dealt with, as well as 10 medicals. Our two new FTOs that we're training were involved in some drug arrests. They were able to see that process, and they're seeing that. As far as other things, I guess it was good to see the community satisfaction survey, some of those results, and see that we are focusing on those areas in trying to do the community outreach, as well as see more training for our officers. So we're ramping that up. We had one officer this last week and a half, 2 weeks ago, actually, who completed the crisis intervention team training, which was one of the benchmarks that we put on. And we are sending other guys out to help fulfill those benchmarks. So we're seeing that, as well as getting our officers back involved in the alert training, which is the active law enforcement shooter training that the county does. So Monday, Tuesday, we had two of our officers who were able to actually go to that. And they had an exercise at Cache Valley Hospital. That was not a live exercise, but anyway, their staff responded how they would if it were an active shooter situation, and then the PD responded as well. And so we're starting to see that. I think it's a great way to get back into the community. As far as other things, we've really been talking with other agencies as we've gone through our budget and trying to nail down where we can cut and find savings in that. Our initial budget presentation to the police commissioners tomorrow, and we're excited to show the savings that we have found as we've gone through those. One other thing that we wanted to mention, I got an email today from Commissioner Anderson saying that he wanted to let the cities know that there are resources, state resources available for the flooding issues. And so if you're seeing those, to reach out, because they do have resources available as well when it comes time for that. Other news, I guess, other things too. So we've had 4 new applications that have come in, 1 this week and 3 the week before that. And we've had 2 intern applications come in from USU where they're wanting to get into law enforcement and have an idea of what that looks like. So we're starting to see good things with PD there. So that's kind of where we're at. We're trying to stay busy and really ramp things up.
Okay, thanks, Chief. All right, Jordan, nothing? Any, Scott?
I want to make sure for the April conference, I have Emily and Joni and Buzzy going. But no. What's that? 19th, 20th, and 21st of April.
Hey, we'll have dinner together.
You and Buzzy will.
So you would go down Wednesday night, and then it's Thursday and Friday. So let me know, because I need to.
I'm
drop
really
that.
sad to miss that.
Yeah.
I am, yeah.
And then instant runoff voting, we do have to withdraw by April 12th. If we're not going to do it, and there's really not a good convenient way of doing it, especially since everybody's
Do we have to
used
make
to
a
dropping
motion to
off
do that?
their ballots in Cache County Dropbox throughout the county.
Shoot, so we have to do that by April 12th and we don't, when's our meeting?
April 12th. Well, no,
Okay.
we have to do it by May 1st. but
Oh, okay, at the
April
April 12th meeting,
the
because we can't take
April
action
12th
on it
meeting.
tonight. Are you guys okay with withdrawing that?
I
since
kind
the
of feel like
county Isn't,
I'm
like
not
making it
about doing
available.
But we have to.
Who's gonna drive the ballots down to?
yeah,
Yeah.
it would, because the ballots wouldn't even get there wherever, Utah County or wherever it would be until the next day. And maybe even not then, because
You have
the
to
coun-
sort them.
Cache County would have to sort them, then we'd have to pick them up. And then our postage costs would go up because those that would put it in the mail, that would normally put it in a ballot box, we have to
Bank
pay for
choice
that.
just crashed. So didn't see that coming.
It's just not a
The-
convenient thing.
Disappointment with that is just that it's gonna be expensive
Mhm.
and we're kind of left with no choice there. Okay, yeah, so Alan, do you mind putting that on the agenda for next month?
Yep.
Okay. Okay,
So you'll see a resolution in next month's meeting that you can look at.
okay,
Don't we, do we not? Oh, never mind. That would be the third Monday. Yeah, never mind. Scratch. I realize that now.
thanks, Scott. Marie? Alan?
Well, one, sorry, before I move to this item, Chief's not here, but you have the detailed call reports from the fire department in there. So if you want to review those and go over those, there's both a detailed report and then the monthly report that goes over the number of calls, where the calls went. Just so you have those. Sorry, not this item. Just a list of upcoming events, just so you have them on your calendar. I know we've gone over this. Sorry, I should update this. The Princess Tea Party or Royalty, March 25th. It's a Saturday at the HSC. Easter egg hunt at Elk Ridge, April 1st from 12:30 to 12:31 PM. Then the Soapbox Derby is on the 15th at noon. And that's basically over there at the mouth of Green Canyon. And the ASME students are putting that together. Along with our Parks Department, Parks and Rec are helping out. And then we talked about the mid-year conference. Sorry, the pageant for the royalty is on the 22nd. This is just a Princess Tea Party on the 25th. Some major things coming up in the next couple months. You obviously have pickleball tourney, Memorial Day. You get to see what Colby does in the day of a streets department employee. And then all these other employees that come in June, July, and August. So busy schedule coming up in the next few months for events.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Alan. Okay, anything from the council?
My time went to Alan.
What'd you say?
I just said anything from the council.
Well, so I sent that text this week about photos, potentially contact information on the city website. I did some research after David talked to me just to see, and it's pretty mixed. I would say, like, in general, most councils in the valley, and if you actually go outside the valley, then it's pretty significant, have their pictures, and 50% have cell phones. We have an email in our name. So I just wanted to get your barometer on that, because I don't think it's, it doesn't make sense to move independently on that. That would be a little awkward. But just, I personally
I
think a
like the
headshot would
idea
be
of a
good.
headshot. I
So no
really
to
do.
cell phone.
My cell phone comes from out of state. It's the only number I've ever had. I would prefer not to have to get a home phone, just to have people to contact me. And it's gonna sound like I'm a millennial, but I don't like phone calls. I would much prefer an email.
Joni, Craig?
Yeah.
Any input on that?
Similar.
Yeah.
So-
same.
So picture is pretty
Drawing,
easy.
That's no problem. And we
One
have
thing,
As long as they can get a hold of us. then
yeah, the
I'm
one thing I
happy
have
with that.
noticed is the council is very responsive. When people reach out to you, I mean, you respond via email. One thing that I've noticed though, over all these years of working with different mayors, different council members across the board. One thing that the public, they always ask for the cell phone, and the one thing that gets frustrating to the public is when they reach out to a council member and they say, this pothole's not being filled at the end of my street. I'm just giving a random example. And then you reach out to the department head, and the department head reaches back out to you, and then you reach back out to the citizen.
Yeah.
When in reality, they should just go on the online form and say, there's a pothole here under the comment section or under the form, and say, please fill that. And so a lot of the time, if there's concerns, questions, comments, just going straight to the department head, straight to Colby.
Well,
straight to
and-
Jordan.
Yeah.
And
that's
maybe we can do a better job of that, like the kind of FAQs to say, you know, because I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Where I would submit a pothole repair request.
Same.
So on the site, that would be perfect, because on the site, we have a form and it says complaints, questions, concerns, and there's each one for each different department. So as you go on there, you fill it out, it pops up immediately in their phone as soon as you fill that out.
To the department
To the
heads.
department heads, they go and take care of that.
See, I think that's something we really need to
Push quite a
advertise.
bit, actually.
We need to promote that and get that word out.
I didn't know. I had 2 phone calls today,
Hmm.
talked to people, but
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
on there for about 7 years.
I think the biggest benefit, and I don't know how to
It's
do this,
just
but
in.
if we can get the web, if we can, I was surprised too by the survey that the website's really not utilized overall, you know, when you look at those survey
That's-
results, and
it's
but that's
really
probably the
low.
best place for information, and maybe we can start hyping that, put some pictures on there, doctor it up. I mean, by the way, I'm fine, you know, either
That-
way. I think headshots might be good. Would you do the same, Mayor?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine with
So-
We already
headshot,
did
like, it's not a
headshots, though.
secret.
It was around for headshots.
I missed it.
I did too.
me too.
You did headshots?
Can
Wait,
we
yeah.
submit our own glamour shots?
We
It was
literally
at screen
down-
33.
That one wasn't with me.
We opened it up to everyone.
It
gave
was
free
Buzzy.
lunch.
It
We
was
went
like
down-
maybe a year ago.
Year ago, we went down to Rescue One Studios. We invited everyone, including the city council.
I'm
Did you-
sorry, I have no memory of
I
this.
don't either.
I
What?
apologize that I missed it.
I missed
Yeah.
it.
So if we have one, we can just submit it though, I assume, to somebody.
Yeah, or we
To
can
start
do it
Roger
again.
has his high school picture. He'll submit.
No,
He hasn't changed.
I genuinely
Garth
think though
Buckley.
it would help people to know what we looked like.
I'm with that, Emily. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, we can do that.
I
That's
had
easy.
mentioned it earlier.
Okay. For those of us that might already have one, can we just email it to somebody?
Well, we can either do that. Last time we did that is we had like glamour shots by Deb. We had 2 people, 2 city council members in the past submit their own glamour shots. And they weren't consistent with the rest of the photos. So we'll probably just go and take photos again and have that photographer come
I'm-
and do that.
Sorry that I missed it the first time.
Okay.
Okay,
Definitely wouldn't-
All right.
that's all I have.
I would consider a motion to adjourn then.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion by Buzzy, second by Craig, all in favor?
I
Okay, that motion passes.
No, because you know what, we're dealing with, no one came down to do it. I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're gonna sing for him. It's almost like, when he sent it, I think I take, what is he doing?
Need to check with my chief.
And it's just him going back there with his brother. And he's getting- I mean, and I'm sitting there like, I'm calling her. I mean, it's so funny.
Well, and I'm just.
Nope.
I have to have my new.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what one guy's name is. He's one guy doing.
So you're saying.
Well, some cities.